Okay, that's great. Hello.
Hello, I'm Janet Parfitt. This is B. Helygen.
Hi, guys. People.
Yes. And B is going to be our featured priestess. And thank you for that.
Thank you.
And so, what I would like to ask you first is all about how you came to Cerridwen and how you initiated as her priestess.
Oh, it's a long story because it's almost 30 odd years ago now that I first met Cerridwen, but I didn't remember that until a couple of years ago. So I'm Wiccan trained, and one of the things that as Wicca we have to do is learn the Charge of the Goddess off by heart. And in the Charge of the Goddess it says, I go by the name of Diana, Hecate, Artemis, blah, 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 and Cerridwen. And I didn't know who Cerridwen was then. And I didn't actually care to know because I was working with other deities. And it was only when I moved to Wales in 2003, I'd been working with Hecate then for 10 years, but I never became a priestess because I didn't feel that that was my pathway. And she said that wasn't my pathway. She said something is coming. So I remember waking up one night and I thought I'd woken up and it was a lucid dream, and I was in my own garden and Hecate was holding me by the hand and she said, I'm now going to take you to be introduced to my dark sister and you will be working with her instead of me. And I went, what? Hang on, don't I have anything to say about this? And she sort of said, if you find a way to work with her, it will be worth your while. And that was in 2003. And then I just pottered about because there wasn't a lot of stuff out about Cerridwen. Even the Welsh people didn't know a lot about Cerridwen. I eventually found a history of Taliesin and that she is Taliesin's mother. And then, of course, in the story, she's the bad guy. And I was wondering why the heck Hecate, whom I trusted, would have taken me to a goddess that was running around trying to kill people, children. And so I was like, for a long time, I was a little bit confused.
Yeah.
And then I was like, well, I don't understand that because I've got my own children and I have wanted to kill them on occasion. But, I've always seen the sense into not doing that. So for me, it was like, where is this going? Why is she called me? Why is she asking me to be working with her? But as I went along, especially in a really dark time when I had my hand broken by one of my students in 2011, and subsequently I had to give up my job, a very, very prestigious job in a university, in a school. I went to university later, but and for a year I couldn't work, and I was like, what am I going to do with myself? Work was my whole life. The children were grown up. I didn't have a clue what was going to happen. And then I read Triumph of the Moon by Ron Hutton, and if you've read that, he talks a lot about neo-paganism, but he also talks about the goddesses and the gods. And again, there was this Cerridwen, and I thought, all right, so I'm going to do some research. So I started what I hoped to be a PhD in Celtic studies, and I decided to do 4 case studies for people who worked with Cerridwen. I started with the Sisterhood of Avalon with Jenna Tillindrew. I became a member. I went and did the Gold Quest. I loved it. She's very, very clever, very wonderful woman, fantastic books if you ever get a chance to read them. And then I moved on and I became an Obody. So I started my bardic training with Obod because they work with Cerridwen, which I absolutely adored. And then I met Christopher Hughes in 2011. And at the Mercian gathering, totally fell in love with him because he was so funny and so irreverent. And he was talking about his course that worked with the Mabinogi.
Yeah.
What I misunderstood is he had a book out from the Cauldron Born. And what I misunderstood is that he was working with Cerridwen at the time.
Right.
So I joined his course and was really disappointed because all we talked about was the Mabinogi, in which Cerridwen doesn't turn up, which is she is in the original book by Charles Guest from 1840 something or something like that, and she she sneaked her way in there because the whole book is about a translation of the 11 stories of the Mabinogi. And that's what we were learning with Chris. But right at the end, for some reason, Charlotte Guest decided to put the birth of Taliesin, the story of the birth of Taliesin in there, about Cerridwen. And that's how Cerridwen sort of sneaked her way back into consciousness. She does. She comes out of the cracks. She comes out of the pools. She comes out of the big sea. Anyway, and then I came to Avalon. Now, my children have grown up in Somerset. They went to school about 10 miles away from Glastonbury, so I knew Glastonbury really well. And I loved it because, what pagan doesn't love Glastonbury, with all the shops. Although when we were here, it wasn't quite like it is now.
Yeah.
And then a friend of mine invited me to the Goddess Temple ceremony. And I will say, I think it was the Imbolc one. It was very beautiful, but it was like, they're a little frou-frou. I'm a down-to-earth, blood and mud and bone druid. They're a little bit frou-frou for me. Oh, never open your mouth like that. Anyway, so and then in 2012, everything changed, I think, for so many of us, because then, with the end of the, Mayan calendar and the beginning of what we believe to be the new era, I came to Avalon more and more. And for me, that was home. And she was here at home. And then I saw the Avalon training did Cerridwen at Cerridwen. And so I thought, well, I'm going to check out what they're doing, and I'm going to write my PhD. Yeah, that was 11 years ago. I never stopped. I never did the PhD, but I have become a priestess of Avalon. So that's my story with Cerridwen. And, deep in the recess of my mind, there was always this idea, because I'm a teacher, I'm a Sagittarius, I'm a teacher by nature, and there was always this need I was already training people in all sorts of spell crafting and things, but there was this dream, this need to tell people about Cerridwen. And so in 2015, I did a trial run of workshops in Avalon. Then in 2016, I did the trial run of the course in Avalon, and then that was it. Since then, we have been training and teaching people to be priests of Cerridwen.
And how did you initiate as a priestess?
So this is a really interesting story, because people say to me, well, how can you self-initiate if you say you have to come to a training to initiate? I want people to remember that I initiated as a Wiccan priestess. So I was already a priestess, and I knew and understood what initiation is very well. And I understood that part of the initiation is our ordeal. So I decided that because there was no priestess of Cerridwen, there was no one, I needed to come up with something that would challenge me. And my husband and I traveled up to October to Lake Bala, 9th of October, I never forget that. And if anybody knows Wales, 9th of October is blimming cold. And we went onto the Pantyrolan campsite, and there's one of us, there was us, and then there was this couple in a campsite, in a caravan. And I fasted. We arrived on the Friday. I fasted. I prayed through the night. I had a lovely altar set up. I spoke to Cerridwen in the night. It was very, very, very cold. And then in the morning, as the sun sort of rose, 4 o'clock in the morning, the sun doesn't rise in there. I had this intuition. I had she said, it's time to put your money where your mouth is. And so I told my husband, now I had told my husband throughout the year that I was going to initiate and that I was going to go in the water. Now my husband's terrified of water. He is not a good swimmer. There was nobody else around. And he came up with all these scenarios where we could be with somebody. Maybe one of his Air Force boys was going to bring a dinghy or something like that, or he would put a rope around my ribs. So I said to him, no, I've got to do this by myself. And also I'm going to be doing that naked. Do you want your friends to see me naked? And he was like, well, not really. And he said to me, what if you drown? Because Lake Bala is 100 feet down. It has two rivers crossing that are quite, especially around the autumn time, the currents are quite difficult. There's everywhere they tell you not to swim, not to go out too far. And Chris gets really cross with me when I go out too far when we're at the Bala Lake. And my husband was really worried that if I went into the water, I would drown. And I said, well, if that's what Cerridwen wants, if Cerridwen wants my life, and I'm being serious, I'm not being dramatic. It was really clear to me that I needed to do this, and it was my heart's desire, my offering to her. So I said, if that is what is going to happen, then that's what's going to happen. And so he has a recording of me where I go into the water, and it was bitterly cold, and I had a sarong on until I got to a certain place, and then I let the sarong go, and then I started swimming. And the deal we had made was that I would swim into the center of the lake, and then I would come back. And that was hard enough. And I started the journey just at twilight when the sun had come down, but it wasn't quite dark yet. So all he could see was that little head bobbing and then darkness. And to this day, he says to me, he cried. He didn't think he'd ever see me again, especially when I didn't come back. So what happened is I went into the middle of the lake, and I gave my vow to Cerridwen as her priestess. I vowed to be her priestess for the rest of my life, whether that was going to be the next 10 minutes or however long it was going to be. And apparently in Bala Lake, if you swim in the middle of it and you start talking quite quietly, it's like a megaphone. And the people went back in their caravan to close the door because they're scared, because they could hear this voice.
It's a sort of cauldron bowl effect.
It is.
It magnifies the sound.
It's got all the hills around it. So anyway, so what I didn't tell my husband until many, many years after is that I actually got crazy and I swam to the other side of the lake, which is beautiful. It just really called me. It's a more wilder side from Panteronen. And so I sat there for about half an hour, freezing. And then I went back in the water and I swam back. Now, I'm quite a good swimmer. I'm a lifeguard. I love swimming. I've been swimming all my life. Some people think I'm half mermaid. But it was a big deal. Even for me, it was a big deal. And then when I arrived back, he said, when he saw me coming out of the water in the darkness, it was like I was darkness made living.
Rebirthing.
He said all I could see was your shining eyes. And he was absolutely blown away by it. I didn't catch a cold. I didn't catch pneumonia either. I was actually but I was exhausted. And I ate my body weight in pizza. But it's something, and I still to this day, I remember that, and I very often think about going back and doing it again, but probably in the summer. But in the summer, it's really full of people, so you can't really do that. Which is why your initiation is also in September, late September, early October. But it was an ordeal, and there was a danger of losing your life. And if you want to be initiated, you have to die in order to rebirth.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah.
And you went in the water as well with me.
Yes, I did. I know. And I hate water. I'm like, get away. It's water.
It was so funny.
How would you say Cerridwen helps you overcome various challenges and obstacles in your life?
Well, one of the things she's really good at is when I get my own way, and you know much about this. Janet is my Kariat Enide. She's my soul sister. So she knows I do box myself into corners. I do open my mouth when it's not appropriate. And every now and then Cerridwen has to kick my backside when I'm stuck, when I feel like I'm the one right, everybody else is wrong. And she has a very loving, but also with me. And I think she's different with everybody else. But she knows that the way to get to me is to be quite firm. Yeah, I'm quite stubborn. And so when I stand in my own way, when I get into my own way, she does give me a bit of a kick in. And when I start whining, why me, why this, why that, she says, suck it up, buttercup. Are you alive? Have you got a roof over your head? Have you got food in your belly? You're doing all right then, aren't you? So it's a bit like that.
She's good at that.
But she is, you know, when I got sick and I wasn't sure what was wrong with me, and there was a possibility I might have a life-limiting illness. When Charlene had the twins, and I never forget when Charlene had the twins, I won't go into it too deeply, but Cerridwen was there with me every step of the way. And you have to imagine, those of you who are listening to this or watching this, that I was in Taunton Hospital, where everything is very, very organized, not sacred at all, and it's a bit like a machine. It's the NHS machine at its most effective and efficient, and it was good. But they don't understand spirituality. And when Charlene was whisked into the operating theatre, I just went on my knees and I just cried and cried and cried. And I called to Cerridwen, and I completely freaked the nurses out. And they were coming in and they were going, please stand up, they will all be all right, you'll be all right. And I must admit, I was probably a little bit, I just went, will you fuck off and let me pray to my goddess? They weren't, yeah, I mean, they sort of like were a little bit wary of me by then. But I do know that's probably one of the most difficult things that ever happened to me, and because it wasn't just my daughter I was going to lose. I was going to lose both my grandchildren, or maybe just one of them. And so this whole day was just she standing beside me and showing me that the children will be okay. And for me, that I just can't ever, the gratitude is just overwhelming.
Yeah, it is.
And you've just seen them. You've seen how healthy they are and crazy.
They're amazing. Yeah. So, kind of, if you don't mind, to talk to me about how Cerridwen helps you with the healing work, how she helps you with the teaching, and all the various things that you do.
So, Cerridwen is the mother of inspiration. We both know that. So, she will wake me up at 4:00 in the morning and say, do you know what? I think we need to add something, or you've got first spiral this weekend. Why don't we do this with them? And or when we do the dark moon ritual, and you tell a beautiful story about a wolf, and then Cerridwen says, I think everybody in this gathering needs to howl like wolves, because I think we all need to howl like wolves for a bit. And it is, she just literally drops in. So we as priestesses learn embodiment. We learn how to allow the goddess into our body, let her act through us, and that's what she does, I think, to you, to me, to all of us who are inspired. And she just comes through and she solves. It's almost like what I'm seeing right now is this knot, and she unties the knot. Whenever there is a situation where there's a knot, where there's something that won't shift, she will come and she'll just say, do you know what, it's so easy, all you have to do is this, and she'll show you how she unties the knot. But she's also very clear that once she's done that for you, it's then your job to continue the journey. Yeah. So it's there's no passing by, allowing her to do. She will do for you. She will teach you how. She will ask you to teach others how. Because, what I'm fascinated by is the amount of people who've come through the training, and then they have created something that complements what I'm doing. I believe that she is an inspiration for everyone, and whether you paint or you sing or you heal, and with the healing at Goddess House, she gifted me this healing methodology, but she is with me. I call Cerridwen in. I said this to the first spiral yesterday. I call Cerridwen into my body for my own protection and for my own guidance. And she clears the way for any other being, for the person that is coming to me, that they need. So I think it's hilarious. I have had Gabriel come through me, the angel Gabriel. No, I don't do angels at all. They do me, but I don't do them. And he came in and I could feel his wings growing out of my back. And I was like, Cerridwen, what the hell is going on? This is too much. And she said, just relax and allow the energy to come through. But very often she comes through and she will come through my heart, through my hands, and she will do the healing for the person. I'm just, well, not just, but I am the vessel. I know how to use crystals. I know all of that. But again, there is an interweaving of all beings that are there. So whether it's the crystals, the trees, the plants, Cerridwen, whoever else is coming through for the person. It's fascinating for me. And no healing, and I've been in Goddess House for 6 years, not one healing is the same as the other.
Yeah. Thank you. And going forward, where will we be going next with Cerridwen?
So the thing is that I have had so many requests to do a third spiral, but not as in a priestess training. A year ago, or during COVID, what we were looking at was the Magica, the magic one, because during COVID, what we did is we did a lot of spell work. Cerridwen is a witch. She's a spellcaster. So the group, we were doing magic for the group, we were doing magic for the world, as we do in the Dark Moon ritual. We are, that's why it's called a ritual. We're using magic, isn't that right?
Yeah, absolutely.
To send healing into the world. We don't direct the healing. We allow the goddess to use us to raise the energy to send out the healing into the world.
She chooses where it goes.
She chooses where it goes. So the question, now I've had requests. I already do the Sacred Soul Seers, the psychic development work online. And I do that freely, and I do that openly for everybody. But the third spiral is going to be invitation only for those who've shown aptitude towards the higher magics, because that is really where my passion lies. I do know that we need priestesses and priests. I do know that.
Yes.
The world needs a priestess and priests. But for me, the magic, I have been a witch for 30-something years, and the magic is for me. So we've done magic against fracking. We did magic against Liz Truss. If this becomes public, I might just get arrested. But we were making sure she was getting the hell out of number 10. Not that we got anything much better in there, but it is about the higher magics, the deeper magics, the stronger magics. The world needs them now. That's really important. And I am, Cerridwen is forever inspiring me to change things, to upgrade things. People who have done the training 5 years ago or whatever, people are always invited to come into the, as you are, to come into the training that is going on now, or read the new handouts, or upgrade their training, because she keeps coming up with new things.
She's the goddess of transformation.
She certainly is, and I think if she transformed us in one big go, it probably would blow our heads off. And I think what she's doing is she's giving us bit by bit by bit the information that we need in order to develop further and further and further.
And is there going to be a book?
There is a book. There is a book. We are finishing the book, hopefully, before the Cauldron Gathering in May, and we are going to have the first editions, the first print, hopefully before May.
Excellent.
And it is a collaboration, because I've been meaning to write a book for years, and I just don't get the time. When you're a priestess here in Avalon, you work very, very hard. You know this. You're with me there. So for me, it really is about, and also there were so many amazing people that were writing stories, that were making poems, that were doing paintings, that we felt, that was telling stories, Janice one of them. And we really felt that we wanted a co-creation. I'm always about the co-creation. I don't like being on my own. That's the whole reason why I want the group to be interwoven. Everybody knows everybody. It's not, I did this year and you did it last year, so never the twain shall meet. So the book is an amalgamation of all of that. And it is an amalgamation, and a little bit further on, of the people who trained during COVID, because I think if you can train as a priestess or priest during COVID, you are hench. Because you're leaving all your own stuff behind. You're facing your own mortality. We all did, didn't we?
Yeah, we did.
In the beginning of 2020, when it all started, none of us knew whether we would be surviving or not. There was a good chance some of us wouldn't. And many of people haven't. Here in the community, we were very lucky. But I think we're blessed by goddesses, so that's probably why. But, so the book, the editor is Emma Dimmock, and, you're probably going to be a second editor if you want to. And what we will do is we will yeah, we've created. And she says to me, my God, B, the book is, I don't know how many pages already, or so many words.
I can imagine it.
Yeah, and this is the thing, we could never stop. We have to stop at one point and make it a second edition or something. But yeah, so it's a deadline of supposedly the end of January. That might not quite happen, but probably the middle of February, and then we put it into printing. And it is going to be a labor of love.
Absolutely.
I think it's a labor of love for everyone who contributed.
Yes.
And it's a global, the priestesses from all over the world, they've contributed, which is an amazing thing for me, I think.
Okay, thank you very much. If you could just give us the website details and things like that.
Which website do we have? So we have our own website, www.cerridwen.co.uk. And if you are interested in taking the training, that is on the Goddess Temple Teachings website, which is a long URL, so I'm not going to spell it all out. But if you want to, just type in Priestess of Cerridwen, and if you're meant to find us, you'll find us. I have that. We're also on YouTube as the Cerridwen Kindred, which has loads of information, beautiful ceremonies. So if you want to know what we do, go and have a look on the YouTube page, and I think somebody will put a link in here for all of you. But yeah, I'm just blown away by the beauty that our sisters create and our brothers.
Okay. Thank you very much.
Thank you for having us, for having me. Thank you. Take care. Bye, everybody.
Bye.